Friday. It's Footy and Frothy's. Dag and Barney here with you, as always, to talk about everything going on in rugby league. Apparently there's a big game this week.
Yeah.
How are you, David?
Sunday night. Apparently something happened. Yeah, good,
Sorry,
mate. Good.
I've been
Yeah.
caught slightly unaware by my own podcast here. What's going on? Anyway, yeah, good. I'm well. Yeah, it's
Apparently
good.
got pretty loud at your place at about 10 o'clock
It
on
did,
Sunday
yeah.
night.
It was a good night, actually. It wasn't too bad. So I imagine it would have been similar in the garage there.
The car horn started going. And
Oh, my God. Oh, see, I don't understand. Can someone explain to me that's obviously smarter than me, if by some chance in the next, 3 decades the Tigers were to win a comp, the last thing I would do would walk out the front door, get into my car, and then just decide to do laps of Penrith, beeping the horn non-stop. Like, it would be the furthest thing from my mind. So can someone explain to me why this is a thing? Right in.
Not
Leave
me.
some feedbacks alone. Leave some feedback below on YouTube and through social media. But it was quite loud. Well, actually, it was worse last year, I will say.
Oh, really? Okay.
But once we got the kids in bed, it wasn't too bad. So, but that all being said, they should enjoy it because, as I said to my 7-year-old son, you'll probably never experience a feeling like that in rugby league ever again as a fan, if you were a Penrith fan, of course. To witness one of the greatest comebacks, if not the greatest comeback in modern rugby league grand final history.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That was one hell of a performance to get back from where they were. Put themselves in all sorts of trouble towards the back end of that game. But said to everyone before the thing started that Penrith really needed to stop the Broncos going on a spree of about 3 tries in a row, and that seemed to happen, and they still managed to find a way out of it. So
they did, and we're going to talk about all of that. How was grand final at your house? All right.
Yeah, no, pretty quiet actually, to be honest. Watched the first half with the little one, and then watched the second half outside and a couple of drinks, and enjoyed the game immensely. Especially the first half an hour and the entirety of the second half. There was sort of a 10-minute period just before half time where things died off a little bit. But 70 minutes of that game was fucking tremendous.
Yes, it was. As I've said many times, to me, sport is an entertainment business, and I was entertained. So
absolutely
cannot complain. We'll just run through a few quick news notes. First of all, I guess starting with, since we last did a show, Kalen Ponga was crowned Dally M medalist this year. Did you see that coming?
I did not. I knew he went on a hell of a run towards the back end of the year, and I think the two judges probably swayed it a little bit, to be honest. There's a few extra points there that he seemed to pick up at the back end, the very back end of the season. Newcastle were red hot, and he was a big part of what they were doing. But there was some curious games where some people in and around that same sort of position weren't getting points. At the same time, Kalen was picking up 5 and 6. So it's to mine, I think they got it slightly wrong. Don't get me wrong, I would have had him in, he should have been up in the top couple of players, but for mine, he wasn't the winner of the Dally M this year.
I saw, obviously, there was a mass outrage online and everything else, but ultimately, who cares?
Yes.
And second of all, when you have subjective voted awards based off individual games, you're never going to all agree.
No.
So that's why we do our own award, and we look at the games differently. But I don't get upset about it. Isn't that interesting? I thought it was pretty gripping TV towards the back end there to see him win it. But it does mirror, as I've said, the Hayne 09 run.
Yes,
100% mirrors it, which we'll talk about later when we review the Newcastle season. But it was a phenomenal run. I think Dally M judges, and I take it in absolute good faith that no one knows anything else apart from what points they put in. I can't imagine there's any other bigger conspiracy. I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
But in those particular games, we often credit the players that make Kalen look good.
Yeah,
we went out of the way to, particularly Hastings, particularly the back rowers, in games like that where obviously Kalen picked up 5 and 6 points in those games where we were looking elsewhere. But I'm not upset about it.
It's been the same for years, as Blocker likes to call it, the Dally M half of the year, because that's basically the player who wins it every year. It's those flashy 3 or 4 moments of the game that do change momentum, and they look awesome on television, and they just get people starstruck with those few moments when some bloke's worked his absolute ring out for 75 minutes and they give him 0 or 1 point for the game. So, whereas, we seem to tend to a little bit more towards the physicality and some skill areas in the middle of the field rather than the flashy stuff that brings the points.
Exactly. Yeah, as I was saying, where were we? Dalian.
Yeah.
Brief interruption. The top 5 on the back of Kalen was Sean Johnson obviously got pipped by a point. And let this sink in. Scott Drinkwater, 50 points. If he doesn't get suspended, he wins the Dalian medal. Does that sound... Would there be more outrage about that than Kalen
I think
Ponga?
there probably would have been, yeah. There's another one that went on a really good tear and was doing some really nice things, setting up tries and that kind of stuff towards the back end of the game, but back end of the season. But, yeah, the way they started this year, I thought from a consistency and an output point of view for the entirety of the season, it had to be Payne Haas or Sean Johnson for mine. But
and as you pointed out, I think when we spoke, to see Payne Haas finish 14 points behind was slightly baffling. In fact, Fanua Blake beat him in terms of points, but he did lose points from a suspension.
Yeah, 6 points.
Harry Grant, 47 points. And if Harry Grant doesn't get rested around Origin and in that last round, he goes close to winning as well. And he was far from his best this year, actually.
100%. But I think that tells a story about the entire season and how so many teams finished clumped together on wins and loss ratio is exactly the same. Like, you had your 2 standouts, and then there was about 3 that were all sort of at the same level, and then another 6 or 7 that were all at the same level. So
yeah,
they're all beating each other, taking points off each other.
Sean Johnson win the Players Player Award. That was announced today, and Jareen Baller won the Players Player Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
Taruva obviously won the Dalian Rookie of the Year. So,
yep.
Rightly or wrongly. Again, who cares? International teams were named today for Australia. The Australian squad came out just quickly in alphabetical order. Tedesco's the captain, Josh Adokar, Carrigan, Cherry Evans, Cleary, who's under an injury, Cloud, Selwyn Cobbo, Collins, Cotter, Tina Fasumuali, Flegler, apparently making his Australian debut, which is slightly surprising, Harry Grant, Payne Haas, Val Holmes, Hunt, Martin, Munster, Murray, Staggs, Hammer, Travojevic, Jake, and Travojevic, Jake, and Isaiah Tio, Yo even. Any surprises? What you see is what you get there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that pretty much speaks for himself, most of those guys. There's a couple there that were probably picked on loyalty, but it's pretty hard to get yourself out of an Australian jersey once you've got one on your back. So
yeah, and Val and Adokar have had some recent off-field issues that they got named for. And I saw some outrage today about Dylan Edwards. Again, who cares? But honestly, if you're going to be outraged about a fullback not getting picked, I would have thought Reece Walsh or Kalen Ponga is more deserved outrage. Am I wrong in that?
Quite possibly. Again, comes down to consistency. Dylan Edwards has done absolutely nothing wrong for the entirety of the season, so you couldn't really argue with him not being picked as well. But yeah, Australian team is generally the most attacking, skillful sort of players. They try to get in and just find a spot for them. So yeah, you'd probably agree with you on that one.
The interest of fairness, the women's team, the Gillaroos, Taryn Aitken, Kezia Apps, Shaylee Bent, Ali Brigginshaw, Lauren Brown, Jamie Chapman, Kennedy Cherrington, Yasmin Clydesdale, Keely Davis, Jess Elliston, Caitlin Johnston, Isabel Kelly, Olivia Kernack, Emma Manzelman, Shannon Mato, Ivania Pelite, Julia Robinson, Jessica Surgis, Simiana Tafua, Emma Tonagato, and Tamika Upkin. From what I've seen of the games, fair enough. I can't comment.
Yeah, well, I'd defer to you, mate, because I watched probably about a game and a half, and one of those games was the grand final on the weekend, and the other half a game would probably be spread over 2 or 3 different games that I saw during the year. So.
And the Samoa squad is Jesse Arthurs, Dejan Arce, Gordon Chan Kum Tong, makes his international debut, Stephen Crichton, Fayalongo Hunt, Leilua Lemueli, Spencer Lenu, Helam Lukey, Marzu, Justin Madamil makes his debut as well. Terrell May, Oluwapu, Palacia, Junior Bolo, Tango, Tuolangi, Tonamapia, Brian Tuo, and Stefano Otukamano.
probably some good reward for a few of those younger fellas coming into that side. So.
It's about the news as far as I can see. Anything else you want to chat about? Let's get into this grand final, hey? As Penrith 26 defeated Brisbane. Just quickly, in the state challenge, 42-22 Souths over Brisbane Tigers and not Brisbane Tigers, the other Tigers.
East Tigers.
East Tigers. And NRLW, as you mentioned, 24-18. Newcastle beat the Titans to go back-to-back. How much of that game did you see?
Yeah, watched pretty much every minute of that one. That was a fantastic game. Very similar to the actual the males grand final where the Titans got out they put on a string of tries there off the back rower who was just absolutely tearing it apart there for about 10 or 15 minutes. I think she scored a hat trick as well, and then the fullback for the Newcastle came back and just absolutely killed it through the middle of the field. Yeah, to make Upton, and was just creating chances left, right, and centre at the back end of the game. And I think if it probably went for another 10 minutes, they would have run away and put on a bit of a score on them, to be honest. But it was a very good cut and thrust and back and forth in that one. So.
Beauty. And the main event was 26-24. Penrith Panthers made it 3 in a row over the Brisbane Broncos. In, as we talked about earlier, one of the greatest comebacks of the modern era. Yeah. One of the best games of football you'll ever see.
Absolutely.
And you may as well do the stats, Brian.
Probably the best grand final I think I've seen in my life. 4 tries for both teams, 4 out of 4 conversions from both sides. Penrith kicked 1 out of 1 penalty attempt. 97% completion for Penrith, played 71% for Brisbane. 321 plus running metres and 58 plus post-contact metres for the Penrith side. 3 line breaks to 6, 57 tackle busts to 61. The play the ball speed in this one, not something we've mentioned during the year, but 3.5 seconds for both teams.
Wow.
3.38 and 3.39 for the and that's tallied over the entirety of the game. The game was played at such a speed for the most of this game. It was ridiculous to see how that, and fatigue was what killed both teams at the end of the game. Realistically, kick return meters 248, 209. I thought there'd be a few more actually from these two fullbacks, but not to be. 11 offloads to 10. What have I got there? Four forced dropouts to 0. A 40-20 from both teams, which were pivotal at both times when they were kicked. They were big moments in the game. 311 tackles played, 367. 1 error to 11. 3 penalties conceded by Penrith, 2 by the Brisbane side, and 1 ruck infringement against the Brisbane side. Have to give Adam G a massive rap. I thought the way he controlled this game, let a bit of stuff go, which...
I was going to say, it's an interesting game to watch, because for the first 25 minutes, there was a ton of shit
pushing
that
the boundaries, weren't they?
That, week in, week out.
Absolutely.
But once you get past that and watch it,
this probably ends up
one of the better referees.
12 penalties to 15 or something,
especially
game.
On the piggyback penalties. Because there would have been, in the first 15 minutes, there would have been so many times there would have been a piggyback out.
100%.
And there should actually be, it made me think there should be a direct, and I know because I follow the team that gives away the most of them, there should be a directive on just say, put the whistle away in the opposition 20, unless it's bad, like make them work back out. Because so many piggyback penalties ruin games of rugby league, I think.
You didn't see too much real obvious foul stuff, like with big head highs or... I did see a lot of forearms being placed across players' faces on in the
and
tackle.
There was a clear. There was it was just before half time. There was I think it was Mitch Kenny that was just laying in to play the ball, and it's like every day of the week at 6 again he didn't blow it, but like you're picking at straws. But
it's
who am I to criticise a referee? Not
They really let the game play out the way that it that we all managed to watch. And it just added to the theatre at the back end of this game. With the last 15 minutes, it was last man standing, realistically, and there wasn't many of them that were still going in the last 10 or 15 minutes of this game. That's about it for the stats. There was tries to Penrith in the 17th minute through Mitch Kenny, Flegler in the 38th, Mam in the 44th, 52nd and 54th minute. And I'm pretty sure in the 55th minute we all got the text on the group text saying they're gone, they're done, stick a fork in them, Penrith are gone here. But
I am the greatest thrower of all time.
There was always a bit of a... I still was thinking with 20 minutes to go that the fatigue had to get to Brisbane at some point, and obviously it did with... tries at the back end of this game to Leota in the 62nd minute, Crichton in the 67th, and Cleary with 3.5 minutes to go in the 76th minute of the game.
It was starting in the first half. I had a feeling that, given the and you mentioned Brisbane's completion rate ended up at about 70% or something. Mm-hmm. They were 1 from 10.
It was
or something
poor
in the
to
first,
start this
in
game.
The first half. Yeah. And the amount of ball Penrith had, and the amount of possession Penrith had, to only have 8 points from 2 fuck ups.
100%.
It was like, this is Penrith are not with us here.
I was really concerned coming into halftime.
It felt like, and you see yourself in the rugby league, it felt like if Brisbane get something going their way, and if Brisbane can either go to halftime 8-0 even, let alone 8-6, which they got the flag try at the end, it was Brisbane would have gone into halftime like, we cannot play worse, and we're down by 2 here.
Well, that first 25 minutes, I was expecting Penrich to be up by 16 to 20 points.
They should have been, yeah.
And I really thought that they should have. The moment Flegler crashed over, I was extremely concerned for the Penrith side. I thought
that was it.
This could be a massive problem here, depending on how Brisbane start the second half, and they come out roaring out of the gates in that second half. Their forwards were just. They had Penrith on the back foot for that 15, 20-minute period, and it showed on the scoreboard. Like they were just trucking through the middle of the field. Penrith looked out, as you mentioned, looked completely gone, out on their feet. Couple of interchanges there with Leota, Fisher-Harris coming back on really did spark the momentum, and Penrith managed to wrestle back that massive job to wrestle back that middle of the field.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it, to be honest, but they managed to find a way. Some of those physical runs, especially from Leota with the 1-2, and then Fisher-Harris coming back through, and the likes of Carrigan and
I was going to say just before
Carrigan
that,
just sort of started to wane a little bit.
But what got Brisbane going with Haas and Carrigan doing that to them,
and Flegler.
And it was that classic double team, and they really started offloading, and the offload started drawing that fatigue out of Penrith, and you thought, here it is, this is the machine's up and going.
But as I mentioned in the preview, I think that those extended minutes sort of dulled the intensity.
And I believe both teams only used 2 interchanges
in that first half. Yeah. And it sort of dulled the intensity from the Broncos, especially towards the back end of this game. And you just saw blokes like the likes of Capewell and Carrigan like doing everything they can to make cover tackles, but just not getting there. Whereas other days they get there and they make that tackle. Brisbane's errors in the first half, they should have been completely dominated in that first half. I mentioned that. Some of the tries, Ezra Mam, the way he just split Lindsay Smith and then palms off Targo for the first try, and then he does it twice, 2 more times. Turned Isaiah Yeo inside out. I think everyone was blaming Cleary for that second one, but he just did everything he could to try and grab the ankles and missed. It was Yeo that got turned inside out, but then the third one, it was Cleary who got turned inside out, charging out of the line and just got completely beaten, and that left Yeo diving at the ankles trying to make tackles. But just the way that Walsh and Ezra Mam was all down that left-hand corridor, just on the outside of Cleary and Yeo, and they caused so many problems there for that 15 minutes, and they looked $1 million.
Yeah,
they had Penrith on the back foot.
Given how fatigued they were, I thought it felt like Reece Walsh was just about to get going. It felt like now they're tired. He'll really start putting the foot down, and there's more to come. And he did for that last.
Made a couple of half breaks, but
they did a good job of really keeping him out of the game.
Made probably 2 or 3 half breaks in that last 20-minute period where they were searching for that last try, but Penrith just managed to regain that composure and make that second effort and stop him from getting the full way through the line. And then, it was once the forwards got him back on the front foot and then they started to dominate field position, it was all the Cleary show. I think Cogger added to it a little bit.
I was just saying this off to Big Mick in there, off air, because he said that Cogger actually changed the game coming on, and I think
played a lot more direct.
Been lost a little bit, but the best thing that's happened to Penrith in the last 2 weeks, I don't here he is.
Luai coming
off the field. They went to another level both times.
Well, Cogger started digging into the line, which obviously is not a big trait of Luai.
Yeah.
And then it got Cleary wider. He started playing 5'8", realistically, and that's where he started breaking holes out on the edges there. Excuse me. He left Paul Capewell completely stood still for the first one. He went through and then put Leota back on the inside. Capewell had a pretty rough last 15 to 20 minutes of this game, to be honest. He got belted a couple of times running the ball. He dropped one or two, missed a couple of tackles as well, which really didn't help. But, that little dummy and then push past Capewell. The repeat sets from Critter were massive at the back end of this game. To me, it looked like when they were still, it was 2 tries to 4 at this point, and they were searching for answers, and their answer was get the ball to Critter as early as possible and see what he can do. And he brushed past a few people, set up a long break down the left-hand side for Taruva, and then a couple of really nice weighted kicks that just sat up in the in goal and came straight back to return sets, which were massive in field
from nothing
for
positions,
the field position.
Yeah,
Exactly. 30 out, one of them was, I'm pretty sure, and it just stopped on the goal line, and they managed to belt Paul Reece-Walsh and put him back in the in goal.
He looked like he was struggling at the back. That fatigue caught him at the back end because he was in slow motion getting 100%. That ball.
He had a couple of really lovely plays there. Probably scored the try of the match where he's just physically dominant and just pushed 2 or 3 blokes away. Managed to sort of sit up over the top of Stags and just put the ball down with ease to bring him back within 1 try.
If we're, and we talked about Dally M's and Dag M's and whatever else earlier, if we're going to pick our team of the year this year, Crichton would be first pick centre for me.
I think so, yeah, well, especially with the Val suspension, the injury towards the back end of the year where he missed a couple of games.
He had I would almost go as far as say his best year. And we will talk about, obviously we've got plenty of talking to do as we head to next season and what's going to change, but he was phenomenal this year, like really good.
And the 40-20 came just before the Critter really started to get involved as well. That was a massive swing because they just scored very, very next set. They're around, obviously on their own 40. They're back down Brisbane's end.
Yeah.
And then it was, I think, 2 repeat sets and a try in the next 5-10 minutes. It was just, really well orchestrated there. And at the end, it was just fatigue. Cleary with the step back inside, just left Reynolds for absolute dead. Did the same to Billy Walters, and then you had Ricky and Carrigan diving at his feet and just couldn't stop him. Scores underneath the post and adds his name to one of the best halfbacks we've seen run around on a footy field.
For him to produce that last 20 minutes, and that was him essentially grabbing him by the collar, hoisting him on the shoulder, onto his shoulders and say, we're going to win this game. That was, and I know, as you mentioned earlier, he missed a tackle and defence was, and his attack in the first half wasn't particularly great, to be honest, but that last 20 minutes to drag him like that, I have not seen. The only one I can think of, and I've only, I'm, late 30s,
one
so
of his
I've
biggest
not been
fans.
around, but I think he's a fantastic player, and something you mentioned earlier I'll get back to soon, but I can't think of too many halves capable of doing that single-handedly in a grand final.
Yeah.
Only Brad Fittler at his best, I would say. I wouldn't even say, people are going to say Andrew Johnson, fuck off. Brad Fittler at his best, maybe Jonathan Thurston, and they're the only 2 in the 30 years I've been watching rugby league, let's say.
With their running game of physicality, more so Brad Fittler, but some of the...
Well, I used to go
obviously Thurston was more of a kicking and passing
2-3 games
option.
a week because I had the footy pass for school, and when he was at Roosters in that early 2000s, he would dead set 20 go, he would just say, we'll win the game now. Yeah. Right foot step, palm, bang. Next minute he's kicked a 40-metre field goal. Next minute there's a 40-20 and Craig Wynn scores. He's the only one I can put in that level. And he's not,
Both teams brought absolutely everything to this game. It was physical from the word go. The first 20 minutes was coming through the TV. Like, you could hear the blokes getting whacked. You could hear the air coming out of them. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic in that first.
Mitch Kenny was fantastic in that first 20 minutes. He was putting shots on blokes left, right and centre. You throw Liam Martin in there with his defence. Wasn't as impactful with his running game in this game as he has been previously, but his defence was fantastic. Both props from both teams were tremendous. You throw in the likes of Carrigan. Yo worked his backside into the ground as per usual and got himself knocked out with 20 to go and came back on for the last 5 or whatever it was. But the fact that last 20 minutes, they had the likes of... Who was off the field? It was Yo was off the field. Luai was off the field.
Yo got cleared, I think, and there was another one of their backs.
Sorensen went down with a HIA, I think.
Tango either got hooked or injured.
Yeah.
And because they had Garner out there.
Yeah, Targo got injured. Sorensen went off with a HIA. Like, they had a rotation of 4 blokes that they had to cover in that last 20 minutes and still managed to put it back to Brisbane. The determined defence, especially from Brisbane in that first half an hour, as I said, they probably saved 3 tries that Penrith should have scored in that first half an hour.
15 other teams in this comp, if Penrith have 90% possession for half an hour, they're chasing 26 points.
100%. Speed of the play of the ball was ridiculous. The minutes that the forwards played, I thought Farnworth...
I think that's a little, not so much an indictment, but the difference in the Penrith bench, the trust in Len, knew Lenny was going to change the game everyone knew Lenny was going to change the game when he came on.
Had some massive charges as well.
Lindsay Smith had a rougher night, but they had that trust in him. Whereas I think they didn't necessarily have the same from Hetherington and Pierre Paliasera. They were there for... They're basically there to give the others a rest. And whereas Penrith interchange, and it's a big thing. And they get Fletcher Baker
Let them
next
have that
year,
bit more impact.
That impact off the bench can't be underestimated in a fatigue-based game.
Yeah, I thought Farnworth and Reynolds were very good. Ricky and Palacia were decent without being great. Walsh was brilliant. He was in sort of everything. Carrigan was great as well. Flegler, Haas and Mann were my 3 best players for the Brisbane side. I thought those 3 were absolutely brilliant, and you wouldn't get much better performance out of 2 front rowers.
At
half
halftime, we were trying to work out if the game ended then, who's your Clive Churchill. And I was making the case for... should Brisbane have won, it'd be Flegler or Carrigan, given the amount of work they did through there. Because I wasn't particularly impressed by Penrith's attack at that stage. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, it's obviously Ezra Mam. And then 20 minutes later, it was like...
impact was massive in that second half as well. I thought Edwards and Yeo were very busy, worked very hard, were good. Martin and Leota had very good games. Leota more so with the ball in hand, and Martin more so on the defensive side of things, but they were very good. Fisher Harris and Crichton were great. They had a big part to play in this win. But it was Cleary. Yeah, as we all mentioned, everyone has. You're going to hear about it from here until the bloke's retired from playing. I'd imagine this will probably be that pin-up game that whenever his highlights come out, you'll be seeing the last 20 minutes of this grand final. And yeah, he was...
after 30 years of seeing the fucking 1997 last try every chance I get at nauseum, at least I get to see something different for the next 20, so that's a nice change.
Yeah, so I had Cleary with 3.
Do we even need to tally this up? Nathan Cleary is going to be our player of the finals.
Yeah, 100%.
Ezra Mam 2, and I would give Flegler or Leota 1. Probably Leota. Or Crichton.
I had Fish and Haas in there as well, but probably Flegler. For him to break out, as now he's made the Australian team.
Yeah.
This is his first full, consistently strong year, and for him to have a performance like that in the grand final.
Yeah, I think Flegler
score their first try.
Gets the one, but we may as well declare it now. We don't need this tallied up. I think Nathan Cleary will be the player of the finals. Congratulations to him on
whatever that's worth.
On the incredible effort he's produced since he's come back from that injury, he's been top shelf.
Yeah,
something you mentioned earlier. Any last thoughts on the game itself before we throw out a few little things, Jim?
No, not particularly. I was really impressed with the speed of the play of the ball and just how long that these guys went before the fatigue really hit.
Yeah.
Both sides. Tremendous performance for Brisbane. They choked a little bit, didn't they? I think they probably could have dominated field position a little bit more.
They'll sit there and Adam Reynolds will still be kicking himself, giving up 8 points. And for them to even go to short drop-off again in the second half, I thought was a bit baffling.
And I think they really just went through the motions a little bit. As soon as that third try was scored, rather than really trying to pin them down and up the intensity and try to be real physical with Penrith, they just sort of sat on the back foot a little bit, which really let Penrith get the roll through the middle of the field.
Part of me thinks they were just cooked.
Yeah, they probably were.
Just done.
If they could have just lifted that for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I reckon they'd probably win.
And as I said, given the fact they lost by 2 and gave away 8,
because that's when all your energy's up anyway. You know, you've just scored. You're now 16 in front. Just really the next 5-10 minutes, just really knuckle down and try to put some shots on these blokes. But
absolutely, I don't want to say they choked, but I think they gassed. But maybe they did. They did feel particular. It felt inevitable. I reckon after
Reynolds' kicking game seemed to get very lost at the back end of the game.
Yeah, I reckon after the second to last try, it was inevitable to me Penrith going to win this game.
As soon as Leota scored it, there was just a feeling like, this is going to be massive.
The tsunami's arrived. And they're fucked. We should mention a sold-out crowd and everything else was fantastic around that. You mentioned something earlier, before I forget, about Cleary played like a 5'8". I know we live in a world where Cameron Munster's a thing, but could you imagine him playing in 6 for Australia outside DCE would be something else.
Absolutely, it would.
Something else. And he could just take the piss. He
And
wouldn't
he
have to.
had- he wouldn't-
He wouldn't have to think too much because DCE is going to do all the thinking.
Well, he's not going to have to play the long kicking game because DCE is
No.
going to do 90% of that.
That's right.
Unless he's the second option kicker.
Yeah.
He could revert back to his precision out kicks for his outside backs and that floating bomb and just his running game. His running game is as strong as any half in the comp.
He essentially is he's a 10-year-old. 10 years ago, he's a 5'8".
Because they just don't seem to be able. Nobody seems to be able to put a shot on him, and even if he does, he just bounces back up anyway.
Yeah.
But he's got the step, and his palms as strong as any half going around. He just seems to break tackles better than most.
On the back end of the last 3 months of this season, and it'll never happen because that's not how the Mal thinks. But you could name DC 7 on form and Cleary at 6.
Absolutely.
And justify it, I think. But Hunter's also a Queenslander, I suppose.
And he doesn't play that position full time, so.
Yeah, that's right. So, if you had to, and if Munster got injured or pulled out, it's an easy decision. But that's just something I thought of. In terms of next year, they say you need to win one to lose one. Is it Brisbane next year, or is there, they lose Herbie, they lose Flegler. Reynolds is now a year older.
Cape was another year older.
It was this the shot in the chamber.
Flegler's a big one for mine. Because he's that extra string to that 1-2 punch.
And they're only getting Fletcher.
And they used him for big parts of the year as a direct swap for Haas.
Yeah.
And then they started playing them together. But at the start of the year, it was Carrigan and Haas starting, and then Flegler coming on as that third string to keep it going through the middle of the field.
Because Jensen was playing those big minutes.
There's some question marks in the likes of these young outside backs. If they can lift to another level, they can go again. Like the likes of your Paliasias, Piakuras, and those types.
Jesse Arthur stamped him. So actually, we didn't mention him. He had a great game.
Brilliant.
He dragged their ass out of trouble. He was the best player. Actually, he was the best player in the first half.
There's about 20 minutes there where he was just breaking tackles for fun.
Yeah.
They just could not seem to get hold of him.
You could comfortably move him into the centre position.
You would think so, yeah.
Or I hear Cobbo wants
He's
to move
good
into that centre position.
Yeah,
Cobbo probably, one of them went up in the centres. You've got Dean Mariner. Who's the other winger they've got?
They do have Dean Mariner there.
And I know they've got Oates as well, but Oates is closer to the end than the start. But
there'd be another kid there somewhere.
There'll be someone else. Oh, Tristan Saylor. He goes right.
Yeah, he goes real good. Cobbo in the centres could be a scary thing, to be honest. But he had one of the games I was a bit worried about him, and I mentioned him and Capewell earlier in our preview that they had errors in them, and there was a couple there that really didn't help their side. So
actually, I think if they're going to win a comp next year, not be one for my bold prediction show, but I'll go. I think they need to treat Tristan Saylor as a Jaden Campbell and get him into the 17 because they need that last little push over the edge.
Yep.
Especially losing Herbie is an X factor.
And he's a bit of more of a physical presence than Walsh. You leave Walsh out the back doing what he's been doing all season, and I'd like to see him in and around the halves there. Even as that 14 that comes on and plays a bit of 13, bit of hooker, bit of 6, bit of 7.
We might see the next year and say Ezra Mann's the best half in the game. He might.
Wouldn't surprise me if
he's only
we end up with
20.
Tristan Saylor and Ezra Mann in the halves once Reynolds does move on.
Yeah, the work to be done around that, but it's potentially exciting. And Penrith,
I think they'll still be there and thereabouts for the next couple of years, but I'm not sure if they go straight back to a grand final next year.
I think they're losing a couple of cogs that could have won them.
Might take them another 18 months or so to get back into that position, I think.
But we're also in a world which next is, can Penrith go 4 in a row? And we say it every year, but now they're losing Crichton, who's been their top 3 players all year.
Absolutely.
Leniu, who is the guy that drags him out of these situations. All of a sudden, Penrith's bench looks a lot like Brisbane's if you take Spencer Leniu off it. And Sonny Luke never grew into whoever he was going to be.
No.
They're losing Jack Cogger. They are getting the ex-Canberra player whose name just escapes me. But obviously they're gonna be certain they're not going backwards as such. But are they capable of winning 4 in a row, or is this a little bit of a blip for both of them?
Yeah, they really need, probably another two forwards to come into that rotation just to keep that intensity up when you do shift away from Leota and Fisher Harris in the middle of the field. Another backup for Kenny would be handy, although he's proved himself
And I know
as
that
being
they've
fantastic
got Riley
in
Smith
defence.
and they've got the other Summerton.
Yes,
Summerton,
Luke
yeah.
Summerton. I don't think they're outside backs. I don't think they've got any issues in their outside backs.
Or Taruva might end up.
can
I don't know.
see
Taruva end up centres or
May will come back.
May. Of course.
Whether
yeah,
he's a
May
centre
comes straight
or
back in.
whether he plays
And
centre or plays
McLean's there and thereabouts.
on the wing.
Yeah,
McLean's there as well. I think played a bit of time in the centres and halves as well. As someone who might be able to provide a bit of utility in the coming years. But it's
And
for the-
Paul Alamonte, and I suppose Dane Laurie will cover someone.
find a
if they
spot
have to.
somewhere. Yeah,
Well,
but the biggest question marks for mine for the entire comp is the forward packs. Like you look down, the best three ended up in the top four.
yeah.
Melbourne have question marks around their forwards, but they somehow managed to end up still running third. And then,
But people laugh at me.
you look at the Sharks, you look at the Knights.
Tigers forward
it's
pack
not-
full strength with a full pre-season should be a top 8 forward pack.
you just
I'm not
got-
saying a top 8 team, but
There's no connective
But
tissue
they've-
in between them and the outside
that's for next year.
backs.
But none of them had a pre-season, so you live in hope that. But in terms of in a game where you're going to get and piggyback penalties cripples that a lot, but
Yeah.
on paper you say they're probably the 4th or 5th best forward pack. That to your point, Newcastle are losing Fitzgibbon.
Sharks are losing Graham. There's
Roosters
question
are
marks
losing,
around some of their big guys that were
Roosters are
there
losing
anyway
Baker
through
and,
injuries.
Roosters will be pretty close next year, actually. Roosters will be next best. But interesting one. But in a season where next year's not a lot changes in terms of rosters.
Paris pack's pretty good, but there's always been question marks around South's forward pack. The
Actually,
further you go down the
Parry, you
list,
get a full season of Lane and
Paulo and
Borlo and Madison
RCG,
and RCG. They should bounce
they
back.
should improve, but
But that's an issue. But I feel like both are slightly weaker next year, but no one's stronger right now. So
big things to play out in the
and a lot of a lot of weird
after
shit's gonna
November
happen.
1
Yeah.
into February, March before we kick off again next year.
I think if I haven't looked, but if Tab are putting a market up, I assume Brisbane favourites at $4 and Penrith $4.50 or something. But
Yeah,
and
or
I'd say
switch
that's
them
about
around
right.
either way.
They might put
either.
Yeah. Speaking of RIP, Better, who got absolutely cleaned out from 100-1 Penrith. Apparently, I haven't seen much news about it since, but apparently it was the biggest hit just about in for some of these corporates in sporting history.
Yeah,
Penrith winning the comp.
Pretty sure there was a message going out going, "Oh, we'll pay you, but it might take a week and a half, 2 weeks before you get paid."
So they're off making some loans. Penrith are $4, Brisbane $4.50, South's $9, Roosters $10. That's South's a stupid price, but I'd agree with the rest of that. Melbourne $11, North Queensland $17, Warriors $19, and they're getting RTS. If I had to have a bet right
keep
now,
this for next
we've
week,
got
all
plenty of
right?
stuff going. That has been our review. Anything else you want to mention?
Not on the
Been
grand
our
final,
review
mate.
of probably the best grand final we've both seen, and we'll be back to get stuck into the bottom half of the top 8. Are we cracking into 6 of them?
We'll work it out as we go.
We'll work it out. See, we have for time. We're going to get into season reviews. And if you are listening to this, within the next week or two, we're going to be doing our bold prediction show. So leave in your comments below your bold prediction for next season. So it can be that RTS is going to come back and win a Dally M. It can be.
Superstars. There's some kid that might be a superstar. Some bloke who was a superstar that's going to fall off the radar.
Yeah, we want to hear.
Someone who
I
might
don't want
get
just
sacked,
I don't want
won't
to just
get
hear.
sacked.
We don't want. Well, Brisbane and Penrith will play the grand final next year. I want something wacky on and
Adam G
there'll be
referees the next 5 grand finals.
Can be something like that. So write in. Let us know your boldest predictions for 2024, and we'll be getting stuck into that show next week. We'll be back shortly to review the bottom half of the top 8. See you guys.
See ya.